to the level of quality where you could sell your art, as it were. And so you can think of a design system as more of like a color by number kind of situation where someone who does have those kind of design fundamentals, usually in a larger company, it'll be kind of a director of design who's making the design system. And then we also have a number of open source alternatives or published design systems from like Google has Material Design with MaterialUI. Shopify has a design system. There's a bunch of them. But think of it like someone else is taking care of drawing the lines and you're kind of coloring inside with a pre-approved palette. And so you're pretty much guaranteed to have a consistent kind of gorgeous result. And we're just going to keep, there's going to be 4 analogies. They're all basically the same analogy, but hopefully by the end, it'll paint a really clear picture. So like making cookies by hand, very charming, very like natural vibe versus using a cookie cutter. You can see with a cookie cutter, that might be preferable if you had a bakery or something like that, because you're going to get just a much more consistent result. And like it's just going to be cleaner in a way. So this is one of the benefits of using a design system. Same analogy, different area. Think of building furniture. You could have like a wood shop and you could be like building furniture from scratch. It would give you a ton of opportunities for expressiveness in your choices that you're making. But obviously would also require a whole lot of skill to get to that point where you can reasonably put together, a table or a chest of drawers or something like that from just the raw materials, the wood and the tools. A design system, think of it like IKEA or like Legos, where you have these modular pieces that all kind of fit together. Everything's designed to work together in a way that leads to a UI and a user experience that's more harmonious and that's possible for anyone to kind of, not anyone, but where the barrier to entry to put together something really cohesive gets a lot lower because you have these modular pieces. And then same analogy, different area, like using the DOM and CSS, it's like buying a plot of land, building your house from scratch with your bare hands, using a design system, like buying a prefab home, you just pick out a couple options and then boom, plunk it down and it's gonna look great. So those are the analogies to explain kind of what we're talking about. And then I don't know about y'all, but I'm like much more of a visual person. So we're just going to take a look at a couple UI design systems. We're starting with MaterialUI, which is currently the most popular React design system. It's MaterialUI design is a design system from Google. So obviously they have a lot of experience with creating apps that are used by, billions of people where they need a consistent, some consistent components across, maps or mail or whatever, all of those things. So we're just going to take a look and don't worry about like memorizing all of the different components. We're just going to take a look at this Figma file so that everyone can get a sense of what level of abstraction you can expect to find in a design system. And this is a rasterized preview. So if you're working, let's say you're working at Coinbase, they probably have a designer who has a design system like a Figma file where you'll be able to pull all these values, like actually like click into the thing and get all the hex codes and all the values and stuff. But this is essentially, this is like the level at which the design system is providing things for you. So there's a lot of work that goes into choosing typography, for example, like the fonts that you use, the uppercase versus the bold, the way that all of these things are going to work together on a page. And having all of that work done up front, it allows you as the developer to not have to, you don't have to mix your contexts. You can just take something and say, you can look at a design that they give you and say, okay, well, this is clearly the main color. This is the secondary color, and you don't have to worry about fishing out that hex code every time or tapping a designer on the shoulder to be like, how big should this button be? What color should this be? A design system comes with kind of a series of opinionated guidelines about how information should be presented on the screen in order to remain consistent for the user. So you can see like this is way more buttons than you would ever expect to have to think about. But yeah, this could be like the surface area of a lot of different apps. You have your button groups, you have your checkboxes, your radios, your general form elements, rating elements, just things you'll find in a lot of different apps, sliders, switches, toggles like this. And you can, hopefully people can kind of start to get a sense of how you might be able to build up a full application from these sort of more primitive components. And Material UI is a good example of something that covers like a lot of bases. This is like a very, provides you with like, they're really trying to cover all of the primitive, possibilities that you might need. And we're also going to look at Bootstrap. So one thing I want to say is that in terms of like choice of which, if you're working at a company, they probably have a design system that you're going to be working within, and then that's your choice. If you're working on your own project and you're looking at kind of some open source design systems, I really recommend like not overthinking your choices. Like you, especially on front end, it's a lot less important to like choose the right thing and go really deep on it, and a lot more important to gain confidence that you can learn any new design system, because the trends are going to change over time, and especially on front end, things just change really fast. So it's a lot more valuable to be able to pick up something new than to go really deep and like overthink choosing the right one. In our workshop today, we're just going to look through. We're gonna play around with like 3 or 4 different design systems. But I just want to be really clear that I'm not saying you have to use Material UI, you have to use Bootstrap, whatever. I'm just trying to show these as like these are some examples of a couple design systems, just to get your mind thinking about what these kind of things contain. So, but in terms of, I'm happy to answer any questions if people have specific questions about like, once we get through this section about, which design system might be best for them. I'm just going to show you Material UI, which I think covers like a ton of cases, and then Bootstrap, which covers fewer cases. Like you can see, it's overall a smaller kind of surface area of what they're providing. But you can see some commonalities here. They also have a button group, they also have buttons, they have cards, carousels, checkboxes, drop downs. Like you can start to, as you look through a number of design systems, you'll start to see that a lot of apps are like, every app is solving a lot of the same problems as other apps. And there's like decades of research that's gone into UI and UX solutions. And so by working within a design system, you're kind of, as the developer, you're empowered to like use those decades worth of solutions. So just going back in to here, and I know I'm like throwing a lot of information at you, so I just want to pause for like, let me give you all like 30 seconds before we jump into like the benefits and the drawbacks. So we're going to talk about benefits, drawbacks, and then we're going to do a little interactive session where we actually use some of these component libraries. But I just want to give you all a second to ask any questions, if anyone is lost, or if I'm going too fast or anything like that. So give you 30 seconds to ask a question, and if no one has any questions, we'll keep moving. Got a thumbs up. That's good. That virtual void is crazy. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Every time I see this thing, I think of like the Bo Burnham special, if anyone's seen that. Okay. Seems like no burning questions, so I'm going to keep going here. Okay, So we're back here. So benefits of a design system. So I think, seeing the analogies and seeing the Figma files spread out, you probably have some ideas, but I just want to go like explicitly into it. And I think there's benefits for like the brand or the company, there's benefits for the designer, and there's benefits for the engineer who's implementing. So we'll talk about kind of all of those. One of the big benefits is the scalability of the design. So if you're like doing a personal project for a friend who has like a burger shop, you probably don't need a design system. You probably have a few pages you can design and develop them yourself, and you can just kind of ad hoc create everything on the fly. But when you have a app with, hundreds of screens with like thousands of states and, dozens or hundreds of engineers who all need to be able to speak the same visual language when they're creating things, scalability becomes like really, really important. And so having an opinionated design system along with component libraries that allow the engineers to like create those components from the design system very easily and in a standardized way becomes really important. Another benefit from like kind of the brand perspective is just like the consistency and efficiency. So like I think there was the industrial revolution, and I think we're living through the technological revolution. And if you look at like what the assembly line allowed companies to do, having people be very special, the more specialized people are, and the more kind of the things are taken care of for them outside of like their own station, the faster people can work, and the more the I guess organism as a whole can move. And we'll get more into this in the context switching part, but working within a design system allows you to be like a lot more efficient. Um, it also just lends itself really well to this idea of like the modular component architecture, which are like some pretty, UI buzzwordy kind of things. But if you haven't seen it, I would recommend just taking a look through the component driven kind of philosophy, which is how to be component driven. You build one component at a time, and you can think of that as things like these are kind of the primitives that I was talking about that you get from the design system, like an avatar, a button, an input, a tooltip. These are the kind of individual Lego pieces that you might start stitching together, combining into these from a React perspective, the kind of higher level components, something like a login form or a header, a list, a table, and then you just assemble your screen out of these combined components, and then there's like the integration piece. So this is just a good visual of like how people are thinking these days about building like scalable UIs with larger teams. And moving a little bit away from like the benefits to the brand and more to the benefits of the individual. So this one's pretty important, protection of the ego. When you're creating something, by hand, and then you give it to someone and they use it and they don't like it, it really hurts. As a game designer, I can tell you, it's really bad for your ego. So design systems, they protect you from that. You're using best practices, you're invincible. No one is going to judge you for doing the industry standard thing. So your ego stays very safe. And even for the design director who's creating the thing, there's a whole like web of machinery in between them and the end product. So everyone's ego gets to rest safe, which is very important for any sort of creative field. And then the other benefit for the individual, which I find is like really, really valuable, is that there's less context switching. So when you're, let's say you're doing full stack engineering and you loaded up your context with like everything that's happening on the back end, the database, performance of, your queries, you have multiple tools set up, you have all these libraries that you're integrating together, and your mind is like very much, or at least mine is, like in this area. Everything's very literal, everything's very linear, and it's like things are things are just, you're storing information very, very linearly. And to step outside of that and start thinking about stuff like color theory of what color should I choose for this button, or, like just a kind of more holistic, like how should I put this layout? There's this, and I can definitely speak to this as a game designer and developer. When you have to mix these modes, there's a real friction inside your head. Like you can feel it. If anyone's more interested in this left brain, right brain stuff, I highly recommend this book called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain, which will show you how this works inside your own thing. But this is like, honestly, I think the biggest value for you as a developer is that if the component library is written well, you like never have to leave the context of just being in React and using your IntelliSense and your type ahead stuff. So the other benefit from a design perspective is you can really focus on your differentiators. So having some of these kind of stock components taken care of, an avatar, a button, a carousel, modal, these are things that aren't going to, necessarily wow the user or give them that like moment of, surprise and delight. And having the design system to take care of that and knowing that you're going to have a consistent look and feel across the more kind of like reusable components in your app allows you to really focus on what your differentiators are and put your kind of design creativity more into where it's going to make a business impact, which is the differentiators. And then another benefit is like the uniformity or the consistency. So just like a design principle is that people are drawn to things that are consistent. And having engineers use component libraries that are tied to your design system and maintained well, just leads to kind of smoothing out all of the personal bias that might be in your engineering or your design departments, and coming out with like a consistent brand message, can be really, really nice from a design system. And then we'll look at some of the drawbacks. So we just talked about uniformity. I would argue uniformity can be a bit of a problem if all of the apps look the same, if everything looks the same as everything else. So this is just something to be, like mindful of as you're working, maybe when you're more creating a design system or working within it, is that while you do want to create experiences that are similar to what people have used in the past, that's like definitely a good part of user experience. You don't like Yeah, you want something that's gonna make your app stand out or feel different, to the user. It doesn't have to be that much, but you want something. And then this is like a very real one, that you guys are gonna run into for sure. So much like, architectural design on the engineering side, there's just no way for us as planners to account for every possibility. And your design system is going to have things that it just hasn't thought of, like let's say a table with images in it. Hopefully it has thought of that, but in some cases it hasn't. In my experience, I've never worked on a screen where the design system covered like 100% of everything I had to do. So one thing I really recommend is that when y'all start working within a component library framework, there's going to be a lot of like, how do I do this thing like the right way? Like, how do I do this the way that the designers of the component library intended? And I just really encourage you, if you've been spending like 15, 20 minutes trying to figure out how to do things within the constraints of the design system that you have, I really encourage you to kind of get a little closer to the metal, write some custom CSS or DOM manipulation stuff. And you can always just put that up in a pull request and say, hey, I wasn't able to do this with the design system. Could you show me how? And they might say, oh, like that's actually not accounted for. We'll take this feedback back to the, design system creator, or they might be like, here's how you do it. So yeah, this is like something you're going to feel as you, again, like going back to like the suit of armor kind of idea is, as you're covered by like all of the components, it's going to feel really bad when there's like a gap in the coverage and you have to like do something yourself. But I just really recommend just going for it in that case. And then now we're going to do this hands-on, like a actual interactive workshop. So I'm just going to paste this link into the chat. Nope. Come on. All right. Grab it there. Let's see. Chat. I'm just going to give everyone a little time, a few minutes to clone that repo down. And the next half hour, we're just going to go through and look at a login, like a really thrown together quickly login screen in like MaterialUI, Bootstrap. I'm going to walk through Tailwind also, which is like not technically a design system, but I just feel like if we're talking about modern CSS, it's useful to know about. And then just like what vanilla stuff looks like. So if people can just post in the chat or say out loud when they have cloned the thing, or if they're having any issues. Great, cloned. Thank you, David. Thank you, Nasir. And yeah, if anyone has any questions while we're waiting, I'm just going to give everyone like a minute or two to get set up. You are a clone now. Nice. Clone. Thank you, Rochelle. Thank you, Ya. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Leslie. Hamster baby. Yeah. That's I for a while I was using main, and then I was like, you know what, hamster is just it's an objectively better name for your default branch. If there's one thing you take away from this talk, you should all call your default branches hamster. All right. People seem largely ready to go. Cool. Hello, Andre. So we're just cloning down this repo that I just posted up here. There you go. Thank you, Angie. Thank you, Angie. Okay. So yeah, so I'm going to get started on just walking through this thing. And I just want to get a sense of like kind of what level we should be looking at. Like, can people kind of indicate, I maybe should have done this at the very beginning, but if people can like, I don't know what the best way to like fist to 5 of like design systems and component libraries experience thus far. People can just put like a 0 to 5 in the chat of like experience up to this point. So I can get a sense of like what level is 3.8.
Is this like 0 is none and 5 is I wrote all the design systems?
Yeah, correct.
Oh, well.
If anyone wrote all the design systems, I have feedback. Nice. 1, 2, yeah. 3.14. Nice. Nice. Leslie, wow, you wrote all the design systems. Thank you. Also, I have feedback. Cool. Okay, cool. So it seems like people have probably, for the most part, at least heard of a design system or used a component library. So, okay, cool. If you clone down the thing, I think in the README, yeah, you just do a yarn start. So I just have it set up. I have like MaterialUI, Bootstrap, and Tailwind, and then like no design system. And we're just going to look at what a login screen looks like in each one. And yeah, before we get started, like I really highly recommend, like I find if you go to any of these, like maybe y'all already know this because you do a lot more technology shopping than I do, but it's always really hard to understand. I don't know if anyone else feels this way. I find it's really hard to understand what things actually do just from their like marketing pages. Like it's like, this all sounds great, but it's like, what are you talking about? I don't know if anyone else has this experience. I definitely have this experience, and it's like it takes just about as long to do a login page. Like I did all these login pages like last night. It takes about as long to do that as it does to like read through all the stuff. And I really highly recommend just like going through their setup and like doing a hello world to get your hands dirty as a way of exploring, design systems or component libraries or really any software. So yeah, I have this thing set up. We have like these 4 folders, and we're gonna just yarn start, which is gonna start up all. These are like 4 different Create React apps that each one vanilla is just like regular React with no. I didn't add any styles really. Then we're gonna look at MUI, which is the Material UI. We're gonna look at Bootstrap and then Tailwind. So if you just do a yarn start in the root, that should start up all 4. You're going to have a fun little race condition as all 4 things go up on your screen. And then oh, yeah. What's
Do we
up?
need to install any packages before it starts?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, you should. Good point. Yes. You're going to have to run yarn as you. I should add that to the README. Yeah, you're going to want to run yarn in order to in order to get all the packages. And let's see what version of Node I'm on. Do this while people are getting things installed. Looks great. Okay. People are. Yes. Okay. Yeah, you can also use npm. So I think just npm install would work the same as yarn. Yarn is just like a faster npm. It's maintained by Facebook. Yeah, but I think you can also use npm. You could just do npm install, I believe.
I don't know about the rest of the team, but I'm having issues getting it to install or start.
Cool. What's the let's see. All right, I'm using Node-env +1. Bin sh React scripts not found. Okay. Sudo at the start. Okay. If someone who's having the issues could screen share, or if you do which node, let's see. Oh, you know what it is? I know what it is. Sorry. Let me just, you're gonna have to yarn install in each directory. So let me just push that up. 1 second. Okay, so if y'all pull down and then do a yarn install, that should, yeah, that'll install. That's a good point, because when I did the setup, yeah, we'll do it live. We definitely will. Yeah, so if you pull down and then do yarn install, that should go into each directory and then
I think it's
install
working.
okay, cool. The old README. You know when y'all are set up.
I'm gonna share my screen and show you what the console looks like.
Okay, cool.
After running, after pulling the update, it actually was doing this, resolving, and then when I did yarn start, we're getting.
Still says React scripts not found.
Okay, it says. I could try to run it again.
Can you go into one of the folders, like go into the MUI folder, for example?
On
In the
okay, got it.
in the terminal, yeah, just do a MUI, just do a yarn with no arguments. Huh. Oh, after pulling, did you run yarn install?
Yes.
And that apparently didn't do what I would have thought it would do. Okay. Interesting. Let me see if I can repro this locally. Sorry, y'all. Get some live debugging sessions going.
Okay, so well, that was able to start that particular MUI app.
Yeah. I'm just trying to figure out why that wouldn't, this yarn install thing wouldn't have worked. Let's see. Seems to be doing the right thing. Is everyone else having the same issues that David's having? Yes.
I think I was having some
install.
issues because I forked instead of just cloning from your repo, so I didn't get the changes. So I'm now like redoing everything.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, yarn install manually in each folder will work. Just gonna do a couple more minutes here. Totally forgot about that. Yeah, because when you run like a create React app, it just does the old yarn install for you. So yarn install seems like it should work. Well, this is a problem for another day probably. So yeah, I think if people follow Rochelle's instructions of just going into each folder and running yarn, it should hopefully get them to the point where they can see these 4 different versions of the login screen. If I can get a couple more confirmations of people having this running. Sorry about that, y'all. Cool. Yeah, just gonna give everyone like 1 more minute. Really sorry about that. Manually working for people. Great. Next time. And then at 2:45 my time, I think 11:45, we'll just start going through stuff. Nice. Great. Okay, so hopefully y'all can follow along, but as we only have 15 minutes, I'm just going to kind of run through some stuff. If people need like more time to install stuff, I think it sounds like what worked was going into each folder and then running yarn install or just the word yarn in each one. I'm really sorry about that. And oh, I see it installs into this directory. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So we're going to run through. So let's start with kind of the vanilla one. So looking at what the code for that looks like, this should all look pretty familiar. This is just a React component. Here's like an HTML form, totally unstyled. We have like these inputs inside the labels so that you can click them. So there's some amount of you get some amount of kind of accessibility and best practices just from the browser itself these days. So it's a good idea to just like see what you get kind of out of the box. This is obviously unstyled. I haven't like done anything to it, and this is just how it renders. And then we have this submit function to handle the form submission. We fill in some things. Yeah, you see like the browser gives you this stuff for free. Great. So cool. That is what it looks like without any sort of component library or design system. The next one we're going to jump into is the login for MUI. So let's go to the MUI page actually. And this example here, so the way that you'll want to kind of look through, I mean, these docs are really good for, for a component library. You have like all of the components with all the different states. There's like, I don't know if people are familiar with Storybook, but Storybook is like oftentimes if you're working at a bigger company, you'll have like a standardized way of doing the documentation for the library. You can see like anything here from the MUI standpoint. These are like the components that we saw in the Figma file. You can see like here's the radio buttons and this kind of thing. And you could just take any of these any of these code snippets and just drop them right into your playground and start using it. And then when it comes to layout, you can see that like back in the day, the grid used to be like really important because it was like before Flexbox and before CSS Grid. Nowadays, a lot of these frameworks are a lot less opinionated about how to do layout. Like if we look at these layout elements from MaterialUI, these are kind of how you're going to look at every design system is like, first, what does it give you in terms of layout? Like how opinionated is it? And then what components can you put into it? So here's like the layout. This SX thing in MaterialUI, it's kind of similar to inline styles. The main difference is that you can use like theme colors in here. So this is like, and these should, in a lot of cases, you can get like VS Code extensions in order to have all of these things autocomplete. So that's what a box is. A box is essentially their replacement for a div. You can think of it like that, or any sort of like box that's not a container. Container is really just a fluid container bound by max width, which they specify not in terms of pixels or viewport or anything, but just in terms of screen sizes. So, one thing that you get from component libraries, or that you hopefully get from it, is responsive design and accessibility and all that stuff is built in at the component level. So as long as you're using their components, you can trust that a lot of that stuff has been like thought through for you. So we're going to look at what this login looks like. And one thing to notice is that they don't, there's not an opinion here as to how to handle the actual form submission. We're just taking, this is the same function that we had down here, where we just log the form elements by their labels. So what MUI is prescribing is the kind of look and feel of stuff, but in terms of functionality, that's still completely up to you. So if you want to use, GraphQL when you're submitting the request or something like that, like you can see that this level of functionality, this is really not prescribed by the framework. What they do have is so MaterialUI has these themes, and if you just look for like a MaterialUI Storybook, you can see how this is somewhere. Hang on. No, sorry. There's like a Storybook link that I will share after this. Where was this thing? Oh yeah, projects demo page. Here we go. So this is how you can see how your theme is going to affect your components. Like if we plug in hot pink over here, accent color, Rebecca purple. You can see this is Storybook. If people are, hopefully people have been exposed to this a little bit. You probably wouldn't be at your level like maintaining the actual Storybook components, but it's like a deeper topic. You could do a whole talk on just Storybook. But with component libraries, like Storybook is a way to look through a bunch of different states without having to write code or clone down a repo and run yarn install 4 different times. So this can be like a really helpful tool for helping see how your changes might affect the components that you're working with. So going back into here, this is like the MaterialUI implementation of a login screen. So you can see, whereas in the regular one, these are all plain DOM elements, you can actually do like the entire thing with components from like this container comes from MaterialUI. You can see here the box. These are the 2 layout elements that we looked at. And then the text fields. This is like, specific to MaterialUI, comes with a lot of accessibility stuff, comes with a ton of options. One of the benefits of working with component libraries, if you're in VS Code, you can just do control space, and this is going to give you kind of like a type ahead of everything that you can add to this text field. You can also just hover over it, and you'll see like a ton of documentation for it, as well as like a link, which is going to send you to that website that we just went to, and show you, all of these different, all the different options and everything that you can kind of plug in order to customize the component to your needs. And yeah, here's our checkbox, our button. And if we take a look at the resulting screen, you can see that there's a lot of like niceties here in terms of like, just look at like how the placeholder goes up to here. This is going to feel pretty like professional and kind of standard. I think, Android uses a lot of these MaterialUI things. So you can see the benefit of just specifying just text field here, as opposed to doing like a regular DOM input. You just get a lot of behavior for free. When things are not validated, you get, if you're submitting, you get like good states for everything. You can see like this little effect when you click this checkbox is, this is, you don't have to build all this stuff yourself. and hopefully that shows some of the value of using something like MaterialUI. I know we're running short on time, so if people are cool with it, do people have any questions real quick before we like look quickly at another design system? No? Okay, cool. So here we're gonna go, this is what Bootstrap looks like. So you can see that this, and here's what the result of it is. So you can see like how this maps to the Figma file that we looked at, and how without us providing any styling, like we're not importing any CSS or anything like that besides the Bootstrap CSS, the defaults. This provides us with kind of a consistent looking and feeling login UI. And yeah, I think as much as I wanted to go into Tailwind, it is sort of a side thing from these. Like Tailwind can be used alongside component libraries. It's like the least opinionated of all of them. I guess we can look at the code for it very quickly. Tailwind login. So here with Tailwind, it's like you have these, and I'll show you what this one looks like. So it's a lot closer to just writing your own CSS and DOM stuff, but it comes with some things like these like layout classes, or if we wanted to change the border of this thing, you get this this autocomplete. Hopefully, here we go. So border, let's say we want to do orange. It allows you, in terms of the context switching part, you like don't have to leave your HTML in order to, you can see like the border change to orange. Yeah, you don't have to leave the HTML in order to do kind of design and layout of things. I definitely recommend trying out Tailwind for like a personal project and seeing how that feels. I know we're like blazing through a lot of this stuff, and it's probably a lot of information, but there's just one other move that I want to recommend, which is, let's go back to the MaterialUI one. And you can go, if you go to like some of they have like these, where is it? If you go to like system basics, they have these more advanced examples. I really recommend, like, instead of trying to build stuff up from scratch, just taking, like, we can just take this whole file, and drop it in to, demo tsx, whatever, boom. Now it's there. And then let's say in our login at the bottom of the container, we want to do demo. Go. And we go back here. Oh. But yeah, like customizing from like a pre-built example can be a really good way to get your head around a design system and a component library. So kind of a whirlwind tour of 4 different design systems, but hopefully this gave you some idea. Yeah, here you go. So this is like, now this component is just like, you can see that you just grab it from their website and you get back pretty much exactly what they have. So if you find something that's like close to what you're trying to build, and they have like a ton of examples of, let's say, templates of stuff, I definitely recommend, I mean, these are all paid actually, but you can definitely find a lot of like free templates, and that can be a really good way to get started with a design system or with component libraries. So There you go. Very super whirlwind, super fast tour. Don't worry if you didn't memorize anything about any of the design systems. It's totally fine. Hopefully this gives you a sense of how quickly you can get your hands dirty with something. And if this, I think you can use it as standalone, is Tailwind a design system? Not really. But you can use it. Which design system do I think is the most valuable to learn? So I would say whichever design system, like if you're at a company, the most valuable design system to learn is the one that company uses. If you're working on your own project, I would just kind of shop around and honestly look at it from a visual perspective. Like, what do you want? Like, you can see, I would really recommend doing this experiment yourself. Like, just come up with a really simple screen that you know you're going to need, like a login or a table or whatever the core functionality of your project is, and then just take a couple hours and implement it in. I think the ones that you probably want to check out these days are MaterialUI, which we looked at today. There's Semantic UI, which is like they kind of need Java or jQuery. I mean, you can work around that, but I would look at Ant Design also, and really just their own websites are going to be built in the thing that they in their design systems. So if you're just clicking around, if you like the feel of it, then I would just go based on personal taste, honestly, because these things really they really do change a lot. So you really want to you really just want to get comfortable learning a new one because you're just going to have to learn a bunch of them. Like, there's no way to guarantee that the one that you happen to learn is going to align with the company where you want to work at, anything like that. Cool. So I know we got started a little late, like 3:05, so I can probably go like another 3 minutes. Thank you, everyone. Oh yeah, I guess is there more stuff here? Yes, there's like these links. Great. And I'll share these slides after the thing, or I'll just share them right now. But yeah, that was the talk. Does anyone have any questions, any follow-up stuff? There's the slides. Thanks, yeah. Thanks, Nicole. Thank you, Angie. Yep, accidental yarn mini lesson. Correct. Yeah, no problem. Of course. My pleasure. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Ivy. Thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Moise. Cool. Celeste is a great game. I agree. I need access to the doc. Okay. Oh, yeah. Only people added. Give me anyone with that link. My bad. Here you go. Thank you, Joanna. Thank you, Andre. Yeah, and I think I put my Twitter in the thing. Feel free to, if you guys have any follow-up questions outside of the thing, just DM me or whatever. I'm always happy to help out. There's only so much I can try to explain within an hour. Yeah, cool. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Jorge. Great. I hope this was useful for people. I definitely, if you take anything away from this, I would say just don't be afraid or overwhelmed by the complexity of some of these things, these design systems. Really just pick a really simple small screen and sure. Yeah, that's a lot for one presentation. Yeah, I did it all last night, so should have probably checked if I could yarn install first. But thanks. Yeah. Yeah. So right. If there's one thing you take away, I really just recommend jumping in, getting your feet dirty or hands dirty, whatever the phrase is, getting your feet wet, getting your hands dirty, get all your extremities involved in creating things. Cool. All right. We're right around 3:05. So yeah, again, thank you so much, everyone. I hope this was useful, and good luck at Coinbase and everything. That's a great company to be apprenticing for. I'm a little jelly, to be honest. But yeah, I hope everyone has a great Wednesday. And bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.